Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. Today we're going to be continuing our little series here on the Roland R-44. Today we're going to be talking about setting the proper levels. So, as I've said before, between 20 and 12, that's going to be the best place or range to capture your levels. But let's take a look at how to actually dial those in. So on this machine, it is a little bit confusing again because there are two different ways to control how loud the sound is. Now, in this machine, it calls it a sensitivity and a level. A lot of times you'll hear it called gain and level, but it's basically the same thing. So the big thing to understand is that there's an outer knob here that turns, that changes your level. So you can see that going up. And then there's an inner knob here, a little tiny knob that goes up and down that will change your level as well. So in order to set this up properly, you have to understand that the level is basically like a minor change, whereas the sensitivity or the gain is a much larger change. It's a big change. And on this machine, you can actually feel it click. When you turn that sensitivity or the gain, you can feel it click up every time you turn it up. And that is not something you would want to do during the middle of a recording or during a take or during something you're trying to record there, because you will actually hear it get louder and louder every time you click it up. You'll hear that sort of pop, and it will be very noticeable if you were to change that gain or that sensitivity during your shot. So what you want to do is get that gain set before your take, and then get your level to a good place before the take, but the level you can change during a take or during your recording. So what we want to do is get that microphone plugged in. We'll start talking into the microphone and we'll start turning that gain up one click at a time. Before we do that, though, it's very, very important that this level knob is straight up and down at 12 o'clock. Because if that's going up or down, that level is actually increasing or decreasing the sound. On this machine, when this level knob, the little one, is straight up and down at 12 o'clock, that's what's called a unity gain. So this machine isn't making anything louder, or that I should say that level isn't making anything louder or quieter. Everything is coming from the gain when the level is straight up and down at 12 o'clock. The easiest way to remember that, again, is the level is the one that you can do during a take. So you want it in the middle so that you can go up or you can go down if you need to during the take. So always start with that little one straight up and down at 12 o'clock. Then we'll plug in our microphone, start talking into our mic, and then we'll click that up one at a time until we get that level to about where we want it to as we're talking into it. Beyond that, we do have our headphone volume here. So your headphone volume is going to be connected only to how loud you're hearing things. So I can turn that headphone volume up or down, and it's not going to change anything about how loud you're recording. It's only going to change how loud you're hearing it right now. So don't worry about having this one too loud or too quiet. Just set that to wherever it's comfortable for your ears. For each of these microphone inputs, though, you're going to be going by the levels here. Ideally, we're going to set those levels between 20 and 12. We want to have our loudness come louder than 20, and we don't want it to go past -12. We talked about that -12 already a little bit because of that limiter. That limiter, if you turn that on, it kicks in at -10. So if you keep your level below -12, make sure that you're not actually hitting that limiter and it's not affecting your sound quality. Then if you do accidentally get a little bit louder and go past 12, then that limiter will kick in and kind of help save you from clipping. The other one is -20. -20 is just a really good place for a minimum recording on most machines in general. You really don't want to be recording too low. You could record all the way down at like -40, -35. The problem is you're going to bring that up in post-production, and there's a certain amount of noise that just exists in recordings. No matter what you do, every machine has an amount of noise, and that noise floor or noise threshold is usually quite a bit lower. So if you're recording up at least -20 and you bring that up to say -6 or -3 in post-production, then you're going to still have a lot of difference between your signal to noise ratio. The stuff you want, the signal, is going to be much louder than the stuff you don't want, that noise. So you can still maintain a little separation between that voice and then like the hiss and that background noise that the machine just inherently has in it. So we'll adjust those in just a moment here. I'll show you how to do that with a microphone plugged in. Before we do that, though, the other thing I want to mention is this headphone knob here, even though we said it does only affect how loud you're listening, it also changes the tracks that you're listening to. So if you wanted to listen to just one channel or just two channels, you could hit this button in and it will literally change the channels that you're listening to. You can go through and listen to one at a time, two at a time in a stereo mode. You just cycle through each one. That really helps when there's problems on set. You have a problem with the microphone, you want to figure things out. You can go back and change or listen to each microphone independently and figure out where the problem is. Around the side here, we have our four independent inputs. So we have a channel 1, 2, 3, and 4. The way this machine is set up by default when you do a factory reset is that channel 1 is going to come to your left ear, channel 2 is going to come to your right, channel 3 is going to come to your left, and channel 4 is going to come to your right ear. So when you're mixing or when you're doing recording multiple channels on set, I usually recommend that your boom be on channel 1. Channel 1 for a boom is always primary. It's always standard. Editor's always going to look at channel 1 for your main source of sound. Main source of sound should always be a boom. We'll cover that in other videos. But if you do have other microphones, usually that's going to be lavaliers. If you only had one other lavalier, I would put that in channel 2 so that your boom comes into your left ear and your lavalier comes into your right ear. And you can hear differences if there's any sort of static or noise. You can figure out if that's coming from your boom or coming from your lavs. If you were to have two lavs in one boom, so you're only going to use 3 of these channels, I actually recommend that you use, again, your boom in channel 1, but your 2 lavs I would put in 2 and 4. Again, the reason for that is that way your boom still comes into your right ear, or I'm sorry, your left ear. My apologies. Your channel 1, your boom, is still going to come into your left ear, and then channel 2 and 4 would come into your right ear. So again, if there's a problem with the lavs and you know your boom is fine, you don't necessarily have to run out and scream cut or yell at people or tell the AD or anything. You know that your boom is good. If you're listening to everything in both ears and you hear noise, you don't know if anything was good because you couldn't identify any specific or separate microphone. So it's always a good idea to have a little bit of separation there. If you do have 3 lavs and you're going to run all 4 microphones, then you kind of got to play a little bit harder because you're going to hear either a boom and a lav in one ear, or you're going to hear all 4 mics in both ears. So you do have to be a little bit more vigilant there. And again, you're just going to press that volume knob in, and you can change around and listen to each of those channels independently. On the other side here, we have pretty much our outputs. You're not really going to need those for just about anything. These up top are a digital in and out. Very rare that you would ever have a reason for that. Here we have independent outputs for each of the channels. So you have channel 1 out, channel 2 out, channel 3 out, and channel 4 out. That is a limitation of this machine. If they do want you to send sound to the camera, you really have to pick one channel that's going to be sent. In that case, I always recommend the boom. Boom should always be primary. Boom should be the only sound you would be sending to any other sources for recording. The lavs would be considered secondary sources of sound, and you don't want an editor accidentally editing with that. If the editor, gets lazy and doesn't use your sound files and decides to go from the camera sound, at least if you give them the boom sound, you got the cleanest sound going to them, and it'll be a little bit better. So your last steps here are basically going to be to plug in your microphone, and then we're going to get a level, and then we should be ready to start recording. So we have our microphone here and our cable. Basically, just with your microphone, you want to look at the cable there and make sure that you have your 3 pins in the proper configuration. And you're going to look at the 3 pins on the back of the microphone here, and you're just going to go ahead and slide that in until it clicks into place there. Okay, you shouldn't have to force it. You shouldn't have to, really put too much pressure on there. Just make sure it does click into place there. Then we're going to take our other end, our male end here, and that is going to go into the recording device. So I'll go ahead and take the male end and plug that into the recorder. Again, make sure that you line up the pins with the socket there, and we can go ahead and push push that in and again until it clicks into place. In order to undo this, to remove this at the end of the day, you're going to hold in on that little button there, and then you'll be able to remove your XLR cable. So just go ahead and click that in. Now, what we can do is we can arm the machine. So remember we said we wanted to go into record standby mode. So I'm going to hold the pause and hit record. And if I talk into this machine, if I talk into the microphone here, you'll see that there are no levels. One problem, or one thing that we haven't done yet, is give this microphone any sort of power. Before I do that though, before I turn on the phantom power, what I want to do is get my level set properly. So I'm going to get my starting level, make sure that's straight up and down at 12 o'clock, which it is. And then my gain, I'm going to turn all the way down to begin with. So this level knob, that's straight up and down at 12 o'clock. Let's focus there. There we go. So that's straight up and down at 12 o'clock. Then we have our gain all the way down. Then what I'm going to do is we will give this machine a little bit of phantom power here. So I'll turn the phantom power on for channel 1. And you should now be able, let's double check our level, straight up and down at 12 o'clock. And now when I talk into this microphone, right now the gain is all the way down, so you're still not seeing anything. But if I click that one knob, or one click at a time, test 1, test 2, as I click that knob up, you'll see that level starting to go up and down, test 1, test 2. If I click that up again, test 1, test 2, you'll see that level going higher and higher. And then again, we can hit that display button to zoom into the levels, and you'll see that even though the level is coming up and down, it's not coming above -24 yet. So I want to give just a little bit more gain there. Test 1, test 2, test 3. And right now I'm coming just below, or just right around that -20. So that's fairly decent. Let's see what happens when I go up one more click. Test 1, test 2, test 3. So at my normal speaking voice, I'm just barely getting up. Oh, that one I got a little past 12. But for the most part, I'm staying below -12. The majority of my voice is coming pretty strong there between the -20 and the -12. So that's going to be a pretty decent place to start. Now you will notice that this microphone is about 2 inches from my mouth right now. On a normal film set, it's going to be quite a bit further. It's going to be somewhere around 18 inches away. So obviously, it's going to be set differently for your actors than it is for you just sitting up, but you always want to make sure that you get just a base level, and make sure that everything is working, listen to it, and then you can go ahead and mic your actors. We never want to, go up to actors with broken equipment or not functioning equipment, and then we're just fiddling around in front of them. So always test it, always set it up, make sure that you're ready to go. And then at this point, once I get onto set, or once I get my levels set here, or levels fairly appropriate, I can just hit that stop button. And when I get onto set, they tell me to roll sound, or tell me to get ready. I can put it into record standby. Then when they would say to roll sound, I can hit the record button, make sure your numbers are spinning, tell them sound speeds, and then, make sure your boom is in position. Then again, when you're ready to stop, or when you're ready to cut, hit the stop button, hit the stop button. There we go. And then the file will end out. One last thing I should warn you about on this machine: if you run out of batteries during a take, you will lose that take. So it's very important that you watch the battery meter here. When the batteries are about to die, there will be a screen, or a warning that pops up on the screen that says low battery life or something like that. If you see that warning sign, that really means you got about 30 to 45 seconds before the machine just turns itself off. And if that machine turns itself off, there's really nothing you can do. It is just gone. That take that you were doing is gone if it turned off in the middle. If you can manage to hit that stop button before the end of the take, or before the machine turns itself off, then you're going to save that file and it's still going to be usable. So keep an eye on that battery life. If you're running it continuously, you should get it somewhere around 2 to 4 hours out of 4 AA batteries, depending on what type of batteries you're using. But if you turn it off when you're not using it, I've been able to get through an entire day of shooting with just one set of batteries. But that's being really conservative. That's turning off when you don't need to, not listening when you don't need to. Okay, well, that should be pretty much everything you need to know about setting the levels in the machine. come and join us next time, and we'll get deeper into setting up the menus and going through all the different options. So, hope that was helpful, and see you next time.